What would be your reaction if, after an accident, you suddenly opened your eyes in a novel about immortals and the martial arts world with your colleagues? What if you are the only one without any special abilities, thus rejected by all the deities and left alone in that world? Certainly, that would make it hard to spend time in an unfamiliar place without any skills or martial arts training. A similar thing happened to our main lead who, after encountering an accident with his colleagues, was transmigrated into a martial arts novel. After being rejected by the immortal for insufficient spiritual energy or special abilities, he lived an ordinary mortal life for 50 years. On the brink of his death, he unexpectedly regressed to the day he transmigrated into the novel, given a second chance to navigate a world dominated by immortal cultivator sects and extraordinary powers. Let's follow his journey as he overcomes obstacles, confronts formidable foes, and progressively gains strength via self-improvement and diligence to change his fate. The story began as the protagonist took his last breaths and recalled his past. He remembered how he initially belonged to a civilized society like Earth and was a civilized person, yet ended up this way. As he was thinking, a girl entered the room to give him some food and felt pity for him after seeing his condition. As she puts down the food, she hopes Seo and Hyun will get well soon so they can make soap for them again, then leaves. The protagonist remembers that even if he belonged to a civilized society like Earth, he still ended up in this cursed world for around 50 years. This all happened the day they went out on their company workshop with the director, Kim, and other employees. But they were swept away by the landslide. After regaining consciousness, they found themselves in a strange world where a three-tailed fox was the size of a house, a two-headed giant snake with red scales, and strange people flying in the sky. He fell into the world of an immortal cultivation novel that he occasionally read. Despite being in a strange world, all his colleagues leave for a better life except him. Since the immortals descended from heaven were completely awed by their colleagues' mythical abilities, they took them to heaven one by one. In the end, only the protagonist and director Kim were left behind, but they had waited a long while for such mystical things to happen to them, as they lacked any unique abilities. This left them with no choice but to perform physical labor, since they didn't know much about that world. 6 months later, director Kim could no longer endure this hardship, so he spent his money on a third-rate martial arts book on the street. He mastered the martial arts in just 3 months and became a martial artist, so he worked for the nation and began learning advanced martial arts. After some time, he became a powerful warrior and left for the martial realm. Thus, the protagonist was left behind, dreaming that something special might happen to him someday, but that was all a fantasy, because even after 50 years, he is just an old man dying from a cold. As he coughed up blood, he recalled being from Earth and was in disbelief as he struggled to live there. He desperately struggled to learn to read and write, but barely scraped by to earn a living and hopelessly managed to buy a small patch of land to build a house. In the end, he managed to make a sum of money, especially by selling soap made out of lye. Since that world was like medieval China, selling soap was an oddity that no one had seen before, but even that idea was stolen by others. Thus, his customers were taken away by thieves who stole his soap-making method, driving him out of the market. Ultimately, the protagonist was rejected by this world, so he waited for his death and couldn't understand what the creator wanted from him, even though he had already done his best and didn't know what he was supposed to do. He was unable to understand the reason for things being taken away from him as well, even if he wasn't chosen in the end. He wasn't a special person. His eyes started closing as he lost the strength to keep them open wide, and he kept thinking about having a bit of ability and opportunity that could turn things the other way, and he died. After a while, he opened his eyes and looked at his hands in astonishment, realizing he was still alive and wearing his earth clothes. As he looked back, he saw his comrades worried, staring around, unable to recognize this place. At that critical moment, the protagonist finally realized that he didn't arrive at that world without any abilities, as he had awakened his ability to regress. Director Kim looked around worriedly, unable to comprehend the situation. They were heading to the workshop, yet ended up there. The protagonist is certain that it is the first day they fell into that strange world after being caught in a landslide during their journey to the workshop. Although all his memories were a bit hazy because it was 50 years ago, he kept recalling the incident. While he was thinking, his colleagues called out to him, but he didn't hear them. The protagonist considered how to live his life properly after regressing, recalling that characters in the regression novel succeed by using their future knowledge. However, he only knew how to make soap, which wouldn't be of much help. As he kept pondering, the section chief grabbed his shoulder to snap him out of his thoughts, so he apologized for ignoring him, as he was a little startled. The section chief was so enraged that he punched him in the face, leaving everyone else in astonishment. The section chief approached the protagonist, accusing him of dozing off at the wheel while driving up the mountain, an error that could have led to their deaths. The protagonist was stunned by this accusation, having forgotten about the tile and unaware that the section chief was speaking to him directly. The chief, furious, glared at him, possibly thinking that the protagonist intended to get fired from the company when he returned, as he had ignored him. The protagonist remembered that Section Chief John Myung-hoon was a harsh man, nephew of the company's executive director, and had been promoted to Section Chief through nepotism at age 32. Another employee tried to calm Myung-hoon down, as he didn't think the protagonist had any way to deal with the landslide. Myung-hoon is stunned, as the chief isn't even angry when this mess happens, because of the protagonist. The protagonist stood as he knew that Myung-hoon was right, and he dozed off behind the wheel. But the reason for his drowsiness was because of all the work he dumped on him, which made him work overtime without a wink of sleep. He clearly remembers that Myung-hoon was in charge of driving that day, so he has no right to accuse him. Myung-hoon was still enraged, believing they had all ended up stranded in an unknown place because of the protagonist. As he witnessed everything, his hazy memories became clearer, and he recalled that he had unwittingly apologized to Myung-hoon in the past. That was his mistake. Thus, he lived by apologizing to others for the next 50 years, even when the gangsters trampled him and his money was stolen. He also apologized to a brutal martial artist who humiliated him, and when a local official took everything from him under the guise of collecting taxes, he realized that after enduring for so long, he should bow only to those he can't handle, not those he can. Then, he stood up and confronted Myung-hoon, noticing his anger, but deciding it wasn't suitable to blame each other at that moment. Myung-hoon was enraged after hearing this and punched him as he realized he intended to argue with him. After that punch, he glared at Myung-hoon and punched him back, leaving all his comrades in awe. The protagonist couldn't even remember how many times a martial artist beat him because he had endured it. He was beaten by bandits for collecting herbs, by thieves during a famine, and by an official for having insufficient taxes. He learned something during all those violent acts that his colleagues don't know is violence. He figured out that beating someone at eye could instill fear in them, and that after beating them enough, something beneficial would come of it. After getting beaten to a pulp, Myung-hoon finally apologized to him. The protagonist didn't receive any mythical powers coveted by immortals, nor was he bestowed with exceptional martial skills to gain fame, but this time, he plans to alter that destiny. Momentarily, Director Kim approached him, having considered that beating a colleague to that extent was a bit too much. The protagonist agreed with the director, acting on impulse and apologizing for shocking everyone. He knew he wouldn't see his colleagues again, so he apologized for the accident as the driver. Director Kim admits that Myung-hoon acted harshly, but he still thinks Deputy Manager Seo acted impulsively, so he wanted him to apologize. The protagonist is well aware that he will continue to see Director Kim, so he immediately agrees to his request. He is well aware that Director Kim will become a martial artist through his hard work, so he intends to unconditionally support him in doing so, expecting something in return and to be on his good side. He reached out to Myung-hoon to help him stand and apologized for his rude behavior. Myung-hoon furiously cursed him, but after recalling how he was beaten, he calmed himself down. Director Kim suggested leaving the forest to look for a nearby village, as he saw something ahead. Although Seo Eun-hyun recognized this as the correct way, he was aware that this world is filled with immortals flying around to achieve mortality and martial artists battling for wealth and honor, things the director was unaware of. Moreover, this forest is called the Ascension Path, and there are no villages, cities, or countries nearby. He suggested setting a fire at the safe spot to avoid facing the wild animals, since the sun was setting. The director agreed immediately, but he suggested finding their car, which is packed with supplies for the workshop. Seo Eun-hyun is well aware that they couldn't find the car and that they wouldn't believe him even if he said he had regressed, so he intends to let them look for it rather than waste his energy. He suggested splitting into two teams. One team will search for a place to stay and the other will look for the car, and then they will regroup there before the sun completely sets. Later at night in the cave, the girl was still unable to understand how they ended up outside the car when they were swept away by the landslide while being inside the car. The director couldn't understand, and he didn't think he would be entangled in this situation. At the same time, one of the employees was amazed to taste the food that tasted like raw chestnuts. So we already knew these would be crunchy, so he picked plenty for everyone. Director Kim is happy to be having a lot of fun with his colleagues despite the chaotic situation, thanks to Seo Eun-hyun. He clearly recalls that Seo Eun-hyun drove, even though he was tired from the night shift he worked the previous day. The girl agreed with the director, as she also regarded Seo Eun-hyun as quite diligent. Others also agreed that they are camping out because the protagonist discovered this cave. Seo Yun-hyun recalls that they couldn't find a suitable place despite hours of effort, and that they planned to relish this moment, knowing it would be the last time they laughed like this. The next day, the protagonist, soaked in sweat, bowed and greeted the forest master. The forest master, intrigued by a pleasant scent coming from the human, found it amusing, as he had never encountered a human with such a smell in his 1,000 years. The disturbance interrupted his colleagues' sleep. They were curious about the event, but their faces paled when they saw a monster ahead. Seo Yun-hyun anxiously looked back at his companions, instructing them to pay respect to the forest's master and kneel. The master of the forest was annoyed as he always heard these foolish remarks whenever he encountered the insignificant human. Although he would typically tear them apart immediately, he chooses to forgive them because one of them showed him respect as the forest's master. Nonetheless, he wanted them to pay a price for staying in his territory, so he hoped one would offer an arm as a token of acknowledgement. Seo Yun-hyun remembers that in the past, they didn't know how to pay their respect to the forest master and scream wildly, which brought his wrath and resulted in everyone's death, with their limbs torn off. However, since Seo Yun-hyun has paid his respect, the fox is showing mercy, so he doesn't need everyone's limb like last time, but only one offering. Even if that is the case, Seo Yun-hyun is certain that they would be healed by the cultivators who arrive in 2 days. He has also prepared a pain relief herb to ease the pain, so he reached out and offered his arm, leaving his comrades in awe. The fox widely opened his mouth to devour his hand as he acknowledged his reverence toward him and intended to taste him painlessly. As his arm was ripped off, Seo Yun-hyun cried out in agony, but his companions ignored his suffering. He quickly grabbed the pain relief herb and ate it right away. The fox was annoyed to find that Seo Yun-hyun had no distinct taste despite its unique scent. Instead, it tasted stale with a harsh aftertaste due to numerous impurities circulating in his blood vessels. While Seo Yun-hyun's pain has subsided a bit thanks to the pain relief herb, he apologized for his lack of tribute. The fox turned to leave as he permitted their stay at his territory for 7 days and assured Seo Yun-hyun that he wouldn't die since he had infused his wound with his divine power, then left. As soon as the fox vanished, Director Kim rushed at him worriedly along with the others. Seo Yun-hyun saw their concerned faces and suggested heading inside first so that he could explain everything. Then he told them everything that the fox told him during his encounter early in the morning. Director Kim is dumbfounded upon realizing that they are inside the martial realm, as he never thought something like this would happen to him in his lifetime. Seo Yun-hyun assures them that they would be safe for a week by offering his arm. Director Kim is stunned to hear this and wonders what the outcome will be after that duration ends. When the protagonist told them they needed to make another offering, they were stunned. He was getting drowsy as the adrenaline wore off, so he hoped they would understand if he slept a bit. While he is in his sleep, he hears his comrades getting enraged at Myung-hoon for thinking something outrageous, even though Seo Yun-hyun sacrificed his arm to end up like this. Seo Yun-hyun woke up to the noise and heard his comrades arguing about Myung-hoon's suggestion. But Myung-hoon is certain no one would willingly offer their arms or legs to a fox spirit in the week other than him. However, another colleague considers Seo Yun-hyun capable of helping them because he provided them with food and shelter. Myung-hoon agreed with him, so he suggested learning everything from Seo Yun-hyun within a week, and is certain that Seo Yun-hyun wouldn't last long after losing his arm, so he considers it appropriate to make him sacrifice for the next time as well. After realizing that his comrades were considering making him offer his limbs every week, Seo Yun-hyun felt annoyed. He grabbed the stone beside and is confident to kill a modern man like Myung-hoon with a single arm after learning all the violence in his previous life. He glares at him as he was thinking of whether he should kill him, but put down the stone as he decides to forget about it. He guessed his mind and emotions might be paralyzed by fear, and knew that acting cruelly would come his way when he had to rely on Director Kim in the future. As he heads inside, he hears his colleagues getting agitated about Myung-hoon and suggests that he stay quiet if he doesn't want his ankle broken again. After hearing this, Seo Yun-hyun sighed in relief, knowing they were good people despite the chaotic situation that had led them to think this way. The next day, they encountered the double-headed snake, which asked for blood rather than a limb. He remembers that it was the snake that sucked on the blood of Deputy General Chief Oh, who lay sprawled out with his arms and legs cut off. However, this time, Chief Oh stepped forward himself and held out his arm to offer blood. After drinking his blood, the double-headed snake headed away, annoyingly, as he found its taste disgusting. Seo Yun-hyun is well aware that the blood of 21st century corporate employees can't be delicious when it's tainted with cholesterol and nicotine. After handling the snake, he looked at Myung-hoon and suggested they go out to gather some herbs, assuming he might be hungry. He approached him, ready to share the location of safe fruits and medicinal herbs, and encouraged him to follow his guidance. He gets closer to Myung-hoon, who suggested knowing how to survive in the forest in case he dies, by offering his arm to the fox next week. Although Myung-hoon was a bit embarrassed, he thanked him for making such a sacrifice. Seo Eun-hyun doesn't consider himself right to receive his thanks when the fox wouldn't be coming, and he couldn't use this knowledge. Later, he scolded Myung-hoon for picking out the wrong one and wanted him to focus on his instructions. Myung-hoon apologized for his negligence, but Seo Eun-hyun assured him he would be messed up after eating that fruit. He then continued instructing him, ensuring he did all the work and kept scolding him. After some time, Myung-hoon asked for a break, exhausted from constantly digging for the herbs. Seo Eun-hyun was getting back at him for all the hard time he had in the company, so he permitted him to take a rest for a while as they needed to finish it before sunset. After some time, Myung-hoon is dumbfounded upon accidentally encountering a thick, wild ginseng root. Seo Eun-hyun looked at it because it resembled ginseng, but it was a type of ginseng known as yellow bamboo roots. Seo Eun-hyun is stunned to see this large yellow bamboo root, and he assumes it might be because his forest is rich in spiritual energy, since it's useless to immortalize, but it's a precious medicinal herb for people of Murim that enhances internal arts, and could help Director Kim as well. Myung-hoon saw several other wild ginseng around, so intend to pick them all out at once. Seo Eun-hyun instructed him to take off his shirt and put all the wild ginseng into it. As they kept working, they didn't realize that it was almost night, so he suggested returning. On the other hand, all of his comrades were acting strangely, which worried Director Kim, who wondered what was wrong with them. Byuk-ho was amused to find gems in the forest unexpectedly, but another hermit, Haeo-gwak, had already set his eyes on them, so he wanted the other to leave with nothing. The other hermit views Haeo-gwak as heartless for his actions. Director Kim overheard their argument and looked ahead in surprise, curious about who they were. Haeo-gwak observed that, besides the three, the others lack spiritual roots and are simply ordinary humans. After hearing this, Byuk-oh struck Myung-hoon with lightning and found it amusing that he was unscathed, revealing he had a heavenly golden thunder body. Once finished, Haeo-gwak stepped forward to inspect, playing a tune that Deputy Manager Kang found difficult to tolerate, prompting her to shout. Haeo-gwak was impressed to see the ghostly yin transformation of the immortal root, which he had never known existed. Abruptly, the third one gets down, goes to Chief O, and is amused, as he has a unique holy body. He never knew this flesh existed, and he grins as he intends to accept the three of them as Azure Heaven Creation Sect disciples due to their unlimited talent to turn the world upside down. His overwhelming aura makes it hard for Chief O to breathe and makes him feel like he would die after rejecting his offer. Suddenly, Haeo-gwak approached him and proposed joining Black Ghost Valley, claiming they possessed all the methods, along with eternal life and immortality. He asserts he has the power to overturn heaven and earth, along with immense wealth and honor that he couldn't even achieve in his entire life. Byuk-oh overheard their conversation, believing his sect was superior, and continued to persuade him. Director Kim observed their argument and urged them to exit the forest as they are at risk staying there. Byuk-oh could understand his concern as he ended up on the ascension path with his worthless body and trapped Myung-hoon inside. Before leaving, one of them noticed that Seo Eun-hyun had been bitten by a fox, and by looking at the bite mark, could tell that he himself had offered his arm. Although he considers Seo Eun-hyun a criminal, seeing his spirit to offer his arm, he regretted it. As he departed, he confirmed that he, along with other hermits, had dealt with all the demons and monstrous creatures along their route, ensuring the path would be safe for another decade. Director Kim frantically pursued them, desperately searching for an exit, while calling out for all his abducted comrades who had been taken away. Seo Eun-hyun was unsettled, as the scene from 50 years ago replayed. He understood that Director Kim's screams were meaningless to those immortals, who saw humans as bugs on their paths. Still, he was relieved to see his arm had healed. While Director Kim was worried about what to do, he suddenly noticed a falling star and gestured toward it. The next day, it was raining heavily, and one of his colleagues was coughing up blood and was in poor health, which concerned the other girl, who asked for a medicinal herb to heal her. However, the protagonist wanted her to wait a while, as he was sure that someone who could cure her would appear soon, leaving his comrade astonished. After a while, footsteps approached, and he watched in amusement as they moved along the ascending path, though they were insects that could easily be snapped in the fierce dragon battle. Director Kim was stunned by his presence and questioned his identity. Thus, Seo Hueol presented himself as the Sea Dragon King. Seo Hueol claimed to be chasing the source of the torsion because wind was being summoned without celestial energy. He added that the lady lying on the ground was the one performing the summoning wind, which amused him as he was in disbelief that a human without a spiritual root could wield such power when she wasn't even aware of it. The protagonist also finds this strange as they have been there for a few days, but several immortals appear at the perfect time and take their friend. Seo Huel burst out in laughter after hearing him claim that a hermit appears at the perfect time when his friends show talent and take them away. Furthermore, this time, a hermit appears at the right time when the lady summoned wind to take him. After Seo Yun-hyun concurred to what he said, the hermit is at him with a cunning smile as he assumed he might not be aware of the place he is in. He rambled all the different names of this place, including the Ascension Path and the Way to Rise Beyond, which is a passage that leads to the upper realm, since a dimensional crack called the Ascension Gate will appear there after a few months, which happens once every 1,000 years. As a result, numerous cultivators and spirit beasts gather, seizing this opportunity to ascend to the upper realm, explaining why so many cultivators appeared before them. Even after hearing his explanation, Director Kim remained curious, especially since they were being encouraged to join their clan. He pondered how they could achieve this if their goal was to ascend to the upper realm. Seo Huil understood why he couldn't understand it, since he was a commoner, and explained that a cultivator could reduce an object's size to fit it in a magic artifact. So they might be keeping their can inside the bottle, with the aim of ascending to the upper realm with it. He also put the Sea Dragon Castle in this artifact, in which 1,800 dragons were sleeping. After answering their question, he approached Seo Yun-hyun's colleague, and was sure that she could become an unimaginable being if he could accept her as a sea dragon. Director Kim was concerned about her being taken away, so he hurried to rescue her. However, he couldn't move at all due to Seo Yun-hyun's aura, which aims to share his blood with Manager O and transform her into his kind. As his aura made Director Kim bleed, he warned him not to ask too many questions from a high cultivator. Even though he answered their question out of generosity, others would kill him like an insect for being rude, and he went away after saying that. The following day, they were worried because all their comrades had been kidnapped, and they couldn't understand the chaotic situation immediately after the landslide. As the female colleague is worried, Seo Eun-hyun went to her to calm her down. She urged him not to get kidnapped like others, as she can't survive this forest if he disappears. As he heard her say this, Seo Eun-hyun grew gloomy because her time with them was over. As she started crying because of the pain, she noticed something was approaching. Director Kim worriedly approaches her as he notices it happening again. After a while, the girl worriedly explained that he was there, and soon an immortal arrived there. The immortal is amused to see commoners without a spiritual root at the Ascension Gate. He assumed they might have fallen into a dimensional storm caused by the dimensional crack, and he considered himself a genius for having guessed everything. He questioned about the person who performed an amazing formation a moment ago, which made him think that an elder had descended from the upper realm. Director Kim is startled by this revelation, curious about the elderly man's identity, and attempts to intervene to protect his colleague. Nonetheless, the elder, upset by the intrusion, pushes him aside. Fortunately, Seo Yun-hyun quickly intervenes, preventing any injury. Director Kim expressed his gratitude to Seo Yun-hyun for protecting him, but he is worried to see the injuries on his back. As they were busy, the immortals got closer to their colleagues. They intend to take him along despite her not having any spiritual root. He intends to awaken her, as he is curious to see the result after a formation like hers evolves into a cultivator's formation. Manager Kim gets worried after realizing she is the one who is being abducted, and calls out Director Kim and Seo Yun-hyun for help. The immortal is annoyed to see how her mind is still stuck with her comrade despite him taking her in. He started threatening her, trying to end their relationship. Manager Kim becomes worried after hearing this and pleads with the immortal to spare their lives, promising to follow him. The immortal warns her to forget all her past relationships and hopes she will understand. Reluctantly, she agrees, and the immortal spares both of them. He intends to send them to the nearby commoner nation, as he is sure she wouldn't be over if they were still there. He created a dimensional crack to send them away, ensuring no one knows their location. As they were being pulled in, Seo Yun-hyun still thought about bringing the herbs, so he grabbed the shirt while Manager Kim kept calling to them. After some time, Seo Yun-hyun regained consciousness and heard people selling items. As he opened his eyes, he looked around to see where he was and remembered not having fallen in a place like this in his past life. He recalled the cultivator mentioning they would end up somewhere random, prompting him to look around. He recognized the road as his old residence area and realized he was now in Yongo capital, Seo Yun-hyun City. While sitting on the road, Director Kim expressed his astonishment at his inability to comprehend the situation. Director Kim hopes this would be a dream, as he and the two of them were abandoned like this, but he considers it better than being kidnapped by those monstrous beings. Seo Eun-hyun doesn't know about that part since before his regression, he was a powerless herbalist. Since they can't stay at that alley forever, he suggested strolling around, and Director Kim agreed. While taking the stroll around, Director Kim was unable to understand what people around were saying, but guessed it might be Chinese and wondered if Seo Eun-hyun knew what they were saying. He is dumbfounded to hear Seo Eun-hyun explaining that they found their clothes funny as he couldn't understand them. Seo Eun-hyun doesn't want him to worry because he could understand some Chinese. Director Kim looked at Seo Eun-hyun's torn shirt from behind, felt mortified that it had happened because of him, and considered it fortunate as he could understand them. Seo Eun-hyun is well aware that those people were speaking Chinese, as it is a completely different language, despite sharing the same characters. In his past life, Seo Eun-hyun spent 2 months among the beggars to learn to communicate, but he doesn't intend to waste his time this time and suggests purchasing new clothes to blend in with them. Director Kim was a bit worried since they didn't have any currency to purchase clothes. After some time, they went to a shop to sell herbs and earn money. The shopkeeper's eyes sparkled in excitement after getting his hands on such a rare and precious herb. Seo Eun-hyun assured the shopkeeper that the yellow bamboo root is 800 years old. The shopkeeper agreed, clarifying that it is worth at least 15 silver saises. Hearing this significant amount, Seo Eun-hyun was stunned, as he had never imagined such a sum before. Although hesitant, he ultimately decided to accept it. After some time, he bought the house they would be living in and was willing to teach Director Kim the language as well. After that, he looked at the money with worry, as he was left with only 1 silver saisi after bribing the guard to get Hope to buy the house and land, despite thinking the money would be sufficient. While he was thinking about the money, Director Kim glanced at his injured back and asked if he could speak to him informally instead of using his title. After Eun-hyun approved the informal address, he called out his name. Later at night, Eun-hyun knew that he earned the money because he luckily found some herbs in the forest, but after selling all of them, they would face problem, so he suggested looking for work. Director Kim kept thinking of a way to make living and suggested starting a business by the money they get from selling these herbs. Eun-hyun is certain they could survive with Director Kim business skills, but that isn't enough, so he aimed for something more since he regressed. He knew that Director Kim is genius martial artist who learned by reading third-rate martial arts book and later learned the advanced martial arts to become he top martial artist in Yangguo. He thinks of teaching him advanced martial art first with the hope of advancing the birth of the heavenly great swordsman by 30 years. He grins as he thinks of benefiting from the luxuries that will fall upon Director Kim later, so he informed him about the coexistence of Murim and martial world. He is certain of being attacked by some gangsters one day if they do business, so he suggested learning Sled defines martial arts first. Director Kim is stunned to hear about martial arts, but he is unable to understand how they could learn it when outsider isn't allowed to learn. Eun-hyun remembers that Director Kim is fan of Murim, which is why he is showing interest in learning it. He started explaining by renowned 7 sect in Seokyeong City, including Demon Slaying Sect, Self-Binding Temple, Surpassing Birdhouse, and 7 Mysteries Gate that are righteous, while Wolf Fang Gang, Dark Knight Association, and Dragon Fighting Stronghold are known as the Evil Sect. These are collectively considered as 4 stars and 3 demons who focused on sword and blade technique. Self-Binding Temple practice Buddhists, Surpassing Birdhouse gathers information like How Moon. Thus, these 7 Mysteries Gate studies various martial arts and has a long history. However, there isn't much information about 3 demons, but they are infamous for their stealth and pursue illegal activities. But Eun-hyun wondered which of them is Director Kim's favorite. Director Kim, like the Demon Slaying Sect, who has swordsmanship for an errant wanderer and a blade technique for a man. After hearing his answer, Eun-hyun was satisfied, as he expected this from someone who achieved the heavenly great sword. As the Director Kim was wondering how he get this information, Eun-hyun dodges the truth by claiming of hearing it from a colleague in the office. 3 months later, they were stopped at the entrance of the sect and was questioned about the reason of arrival. Eun-hyun pointed at Director Kim and explained that he came to learn this sect martial art due to its reputation. The warrior looked at Director Kim, appearance could tell they had some money, but apologized as learning martial art at his age is hard. Eun-hyun laughed after hearing this, took out some money, and requested to talk with someone in a higher position as he biz fine with the self-defines martial arts as well. After a while, they were inside the sect and meet a martial artist who questioned if they wanted to learn self-defense martial art. The protagonist shows the box full of silver saises to the martial artist and hope he could teach them. After seeing that much money, the martial artist reluctantly agrees to let him be an outer disciple, but agreed to let only one join without any privileges since they are joining with a donation. Yoon-hyun is stunned to hear his offer, thinking he sold the yellow bamboo root just to get that. Director Kim was enraged after hearing this and called him thief, but what was more surprising is that Yoon-hyun immediately agreed to him and wanted his big brother to join as an outer disciple. Since they had already made their decision, so the hall master instructed Director Kim to come to the Hall of Externa Disciples later. Director Kim doesn't think it's right to learn martial art alone and think of going to a different sect if he had known it was this expensive. Yoon-hyun considered himself bad in martial art and intend to use the remaining slaver Sices to support Director Kim so that he could learn martial art. Director Kim was completely indebted to him after hearing this and promised to do his best to help him out, but he doubted he could even learn the basic martial art at his age. But Yoon-hyun hopes he don't doubt himself and trust himself so he could get better result. 7 months later, at Intersect Martial Arts Contest, the elder furiously grits his teeth after seeing all of his disciple lose to an old man so easily. The revolutionary comeback of Director Kim flipped the demon sect upside down. Understanding martial arts involves grasping their true essence and embodying it, which can elevate a third-rate martial artist to a second-rate one. To reach a higher level, one requires 2 or 3 times the understanding and effort. However, some martial artists advance more quickly than others, overshadowing the typical learning pace of most practitioners. Talented martial artists from all over the world assembled at the demon-slaying sect, but still they were all defeated by a single outer disciple. Director Kim took only 7 months to master the absolute dragon saber technique and become a first-rate martial artist. The elder was genuinely surprised because talented martial artists often spend their entire lives trying to reach the first rank. What was even more surprising was that Director Kim isn't affiliated with their sect and was deeply mortified because their tradition was at risk of being lost to a single man. Therefore, he ordered that Director Kim be summoned into the room. After their return to the room, Yoon-hyun understood their concern and astonishment at Director Kim, who had reached the elder level in half a year. Thus, Director Kim was detained at his house on the charge of being a spy from another sect, but Yoon-hyun couldn't understand why he was detained alongside him, as he didn't know martial arts. He looked at Director Kim, who was still training, and wondered whether he was worried about being accused of spying for another sect. Yoon-hyun has heard of martial artists having their dantian removed or their meridian severed to prevent them from practicing martial arts, and he assumes Director Kim might be worried about this. Director Kim isn't worried about that for a moment, as he is busy reaching the next level after breaking through the new wall he notices. Yoon-hyun is stunned upon hearing this, considering him to have a truly monstrous ability as he is thinking of reaching the next level after becoming a first-rate. Since the first rate is Zenth, also known as the Pinnacle Realm, material artists at this level are either elders or hallmasters of the Grand Sect. Even at this level, Director Kim ranks among the top 1,000 martial artists in the country. Since there's no information beyond the Zenith level, it is regarded as the peak of martial arts. As he considered this, Yoon-hyun realized his prediction might be wrong, because at this pace, the emergence of a heavenly great swordsman could be accelerated by 40 years. 7 days later, Director Kim was still practicing in his room and exuding an overwhelming aura. Yoon-hyun is stunned to see Kai's flower around the director, which appears at zenith, and the 3 of them gather at the summit. As he contemplates this, Director Kim eagerly explains that he has broken through the wall, so he no longer fears the hallmaster of the demon-slaying sect. Along with the protagonist, Director Kim was also surprised by his talent and attributed it to his love for the Muram from a young age. Momentarily, the man rushed into the room to announce that young Hoon Dantian would be broken for trying to steal their sect's martial art, as per the hallmaster's order. Young Hoon glared at the martial artists surrounding them, but Eun-hyun kept explaining that they weren't spies, but ordinary people. The man furiously silenced Yoon-hyun as he received a report that the 2 of them used unknown language to communicate, so he commanded his comrades to tie them up, before they could succeed. Young Hoon was annoyed to see that, so he quickly unsheathed his sword to strike the man and clarified that it was for the first lesson he learned from the sect. Another martial artist was furious at his courage to fight back. But before they could strike again, Young Hoon injured everyone's hands, prompting them to rush out of the chamber to inform the hallmaster that he had achieved zenith. After they left, Young Hoon inquired about Yoon-hyun's plan for the future, as he intends to travel to different sects to learn more martial arts. Yoon-hyun intended to follow him and, from the start, suggested joining the renowned evil sect. Young Hoon is pleased to hear about that, so he suggested that the protagonist leave first, as he would follow him after taking care of the elders and the hall master of the demon-slaying sect. After some time, he had already reached the top of the mountain and was waiting for Yoon-hyun for a while. Yoon-hyun was barely keeping up with his pace and clarified that he was faster than him. He looked at the blood on Young-hoon's sword and remembered how he had pointed out his violent behavior in the past, but he was well aware that these changes in them were their survival instincts. Although he wished to return to their normal life on Earth, he preferred being sent back because he could regress. However, with no choice, he must live like this for now. After escaping the demon-slaying sect, Young-hoon took over the dragon-fighting stronghold. Thus, they traveled around Yangguo for 2 years, defeating different sects, and had already defeated every sect in their 3rd year. Thus, Young-hoon received the moniker Heavenly Supreme Master and, through his renown, united the Murim sects to establish the Wulin Alliance. 7 years later, Soo-hyun formed a brotherly relationship with director Kim, regardless of their age difference. Young-hoon also developed a martial art called Severing Mountain Swordsmanship, designed specifically for Yoon-hyun, capable of slicing through mountains. He believes Yoon-hyun has the potential to reach zenith if he masters this technique. The protagonist is taken aback because both the Severing Mountain Swordsmanship and Dragon Vein QY method are top-tier martial arts, yet he has no natural talent for martial arts. After training with Young-hoon for some time, even Young-hoon must admit that the protagonist lacks talent and feels frustrated by his dullness. Even though Heavenly Supreme Master himself created a martial art for him, he could reach the 3rd rate after 1 year. He considers this more than enough for him, as he has other talents and is good with medicine. After 10 years had passed, Yoon-hyun peeked inside Young-hoon's room and witnessed the legendary 5 energies converging to the origin. As Young-hoon successfully converged them, his body radiated intense energy and began transforming back into his younger self. Yoon-hyun was dazzled by the bright light and called out to director Kim in concern. Once Young-hoon had fully transformed, he laughed joyfully, amused by Yoon-hyun's bewildered reaction. Yoon-hyun is baffled to see that director Kim looks younger than him and is certain that the world would go crazy if they found out about his complete transformation. Young-hoon also felt more alive and was certain the world would be astounded and wanted to find a successor for the Wulin Alliance. This makes Yoon-hyun assume he doesn't have any suitable candidates for that. Young-hoon was looking for someone with a decent level of martial arts to be a leader, but couldn't find anyone till now. Yoon-hyun laughed awkwardly after hearing this, as he considered that it was because there was no one with exceptional talent like him. He looked out the window, saw the disciples training, and became a disciple, as he couldn't find a single talented person. 15 years passed just like that. Yoon-hyun was in his mid-60s at that time, and it had been 35 years since he started a new life. He is wondering what Young-hoon is doing now, as he has relinquished his position as leader of the Wulin Alliance and retired after a complete transformation. Despite his urge to retire earlier, he held back to stabilize the alliance. He is well aware that Young-hoon wanted to travel across Yangguo and couldn't even make it to the day he was retired. After a while, he came out to look at the house he bought with his retirement funds and found it huge. Abruptly, he heard a noise, then saw someone and wondered who it was. After taking a look at the face, he realized it was Young-hoon, so he questioned why he had not appeared at his retirement ceremony. Instead of replying, Young-hoon lay down and muttered that he always believed he was destined to pursue martial arts. Yoon-hyun shared this belief, since his older brother is a martial arts genius. Young-hoon agreed, noting that no ordinary person could follow his path. Yoon-hyun doesn't consider him an ordinary human, since he has reached the peak of martial arts and is known as the Heavenly Supreme Master. Young-hoon doesn't agree as he duels with those ascetics from 35 years ago who kidnapped their colleagues. Yoon-hyun is stunned to hear about them, as they were the force controlling the Yanggu imperial family. After he established the Wulin Alliance, its influence grew, prompting the ascetic to interfere. Young-hoon disliked this but knew that disobeying them meant fighting the nation, so he listened to them for the alliance's sake and gave up his position, traveling around to duel with them. Young-han explained how difficult it was for him to find them, and they were unwilling to waste their time fighting an ordinary man like him, so they escaped using flying or illusion techniques. He hardly managed to fight against one 5 years ago, but managed to win. Yoon-hyun was pleased to hear that, but knew he would have many headaches if his older brother had done this while he was in charge. Young-hoon's eyes widened in shock as he explained that he had fought with his lie line against an ascetic at the Foundation building, injuring him slightly on the tip of his finger. The ascetic claimed it would be considered a victory if his attack merely touched him. Yoon-hyun is stunned to hear that they are one of the 10 strongest ascetic worlds. Young-hoon corrected him, as that is incorrect, since the person claims to be the second lowest in the ascetic world and is equivalent to a second-grade martial artist in Murim. Yoon-hyun's eyes widened in shock after hearing that, as he didn't think that was right. Although he knew that ascetics were incredible beings, Young-hoon's martial art is close to the heavenly sky. Since he could use void steps to perform martial arts in the air and slice the 10,000-year steel like tofu, yet a genius martial artist like him could inflict only a tiny wound, it was truly unbelievable. Young Hoon was in disbelief as he was just a big fish in a small pond for them, and came to know they can't fight against the ascetics, who are considered a natural disaster. Then he opened his robe to take an arm out and clarified that he sliced that ascetic's arm off that day. Yoon Hyun assumed that his martial arts might have surpassed him, but Young Hoon refused, as that ascetic arm grew back after he placed a talisman near his hand, and he assumed his martial arts training stopped there. He came there to say goodbye, since the ascetic had allowed him to join his clan and admire his skills, and he had to start at the bottom. After hearing this, Yoon Hyun is stunned, realizing he would have to follow the path of becoming a cultivator, which is said to be impossible without a spiritual root. Young Hoon explained that the ascetic considers a person to be achieving the convergence of the 5 energies at the origin, similar to achieving the spiritual roots of the 5 elements. He realized that those like him must struggle to achieve the ascetic qualities they are born with, and could only awaken the initial trait to become like them. After stating this, he made a crack in front and moved to reach even higher. He extended his hand with the book, his final gift to Yoon Hyun, hoping he would take care of it. Yoon Hyun kept calling him, but it was already too late. Then he looked at the book, a record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts designed to surpass ascetics. He kept calling out for Young Hoon, unable to believe he was leaving his brother behind as he headed somewhere. Time passed until Eun Hyun was on his deathbed. He saw it as cruel to die again from the flu. He understood that humans cannot escape their fate. The only change was his house and bed, but he was still dying on the same day. To avoid the regrets of his past life, he led a busy life and never considered marriage. He united all the clans in Yangguo and amassed considerable wealth, yet he felt sorrowful in his final days. Tears welled up as he thought about reaching the sky with Young Hoon if he had struggled a bit more. Overcome by this unknown helplessness, he regretted everything that led to his second regression. He opened his eyes again to the ascension path, sensing his body coming alive due to his regression. This time, when Myung-hoon angrily cursed and tried to slap him, he dodged just in time. As he continued to avoid the attacks, he saw this new life as a chance to start fresh with a new body. Still, his mind lingered on everything he had achieved in his previous life. Myung-hoon, furious that he was the cause of the accident, attempted to punch him. But Yoon-hyun evaded his attack, but considers this regression a curse that denies his life, so he can't be happy about another chance as well. Although he could be happy if this happened once or twice, if this cycle continues infinitely, then he would be stuck in this painful cycle that forces him to live repeatedly. Furthermore, he is filled with regret at not having met the people from his past life again, and the people standing in front of him are different from the ones he knew before. Young Hoon, with whom he has spent his entire life, is no longer there. As he saw Young Hoon calming Myung-hoon down, he agreed, as getting frustrated is pointless. He reminded Myung-hoon how he was supposed to drive that day. He clearly warned him that he couldn't sleep last night because he was working, so he couldn't avoid a landslide on a mountain in his condition. After explaining everything, he turned to leave, hoping Myung-hoon would understand what to do rather than blame him, leaving his colleague stunned. Then he addressed Director Kim, saying he would find a place to stay for the night since the sun was setting, and suggested that others search for the car or a way out of the forest. Without hearing any of their thoughts, he explained that he planned to start a fire during the night so they could locate him easily. He has no intention of caring for any of them in this life, believing he will ultimately regress on his own. Later, while everyone slept peacefully, Yoon Hyun continued to ponder these terrifying infinite lives and decided to eliminate this cursed ability. He thought that returning to Earth was the only way to get rid of these regressions, as they began after he arrived at the Ascension Path. But he didn't know how to return. He recalls the last ascetic explained that dimension instability might have caused their transfer there. He guessed their arrival at this place is related to the Ascension Gate, so he intends to use that gate to return to Earth. He is well aware that strength is needed for that, as he can't try anything as a commoner and intends to become a cultivator like Young Hoon. He is eager to learn more about the Ascension Gate after strengthening himself through cultivation, so he has decided on his path in this life. The next day, he discovered yellow bamboo roots and began to eat them. He could feel the powerful chi moving through his dantian. Since he didn't know how to use the Cheonji heart method in his past life, consuming these yellow bamboo roots was meaningless. However, with the Dragon Vein Chi method that Young Hoon developed for him, he can now activate his chi pathways. After training for a whole hour, he sweated profusely and considered opening them difficult for now because of the impurities in his body. Then he carved a wooden stick into a sharp weapon, considered it sufficient for his training, and started training. Since he was a second-rate martial artist in his past life, his swordsmanship has grown dull from prolonged use. He still didn't give up, looked at the tree ahead, and struck it using his technique, severing mountain swordsmanship, and managed to inflict some harm on it. He is confident he will regain his strength in a while, since all the theories are still in his memory. Young Hoon watched from a distance and was amazed to see him cause damage to the tree with a wooden sword, so he wanted to learn more. When he saw the tree, he was pleased to realize that the best instructor had arrived to help him cultivate it, and he asked Director Kim whether he wanted to learn this skill as well. After a while, the forest fox arrived, chuckling slyly when he saw the humans daring to play in his forest without permission, and he wanted to teach them a lesson. Yoon Hyun was stunned when he saw the fox, as he had nearly forgotten about its existence. He recalled the fox devoured his arm. Yoon Hyun endured it and stated, controlling his nerves to minimize the pain inflicted. He admits that he was weak in both his first and second lives, but he remains weak even in his third. As he approached the fox, his colleagues tried to stop him. He clearly told himself he would become a cultivator by achieving the convergence of the 5 energies at the origin. Despite learning his best for 100 years, he could only become a first-rate martial artist and knew that, compared to others around him, his talent was truly trash. Yet he didn't intend to give up, even if it took 10,000 years. After numbing his arm, he quickly tore it off, leaving his colleagues in utter concern, but Yoon Hyun ignored all of them and offered his arm to the fox as a tribute. The fox grins excitedly to finally meet a human with manners who can make a sacrifice for himself, so he wanted to taste it. Yoon Hyun is always prepared to offer his arm to the forest master until he is stronger than him. After eating his arm, the fox allowed them to stay in the forest, then left. Yoon Hyun doesn't care about his co-worker and keeps training in the forest. He kept wielding his sword without a wink of sleep or a bite to eat, except for the times the cultivator came to heal his arm or kidnapped his co-worker. But he stopped the 4th day to respectfully ask the Sea Dragon King a question as an ordinary person. After being granted permission, he asked about Deputy Manager Oh Hee-seo, whom the Sea Dragon King intends to take away despite her lacking spiritual roots. Since an ordinary human could only live for a century, he wondered what use she was. Seo Hweo laughed after seeing how knowledgeable Yoon Hyun is about the cultivators. He didn't want him to worry because Oh Hee-seo would awaken her spiritual roots suitable for her after accepting his blood. After hearing this, Yoon Hyun is thrilled, as he thought they could also get the same opportunity since they belong to the same world and might have special abilities as well. After hearing this, Seo Hweo grins and warns him never to suggest such ideas to a cultivator like him. His intimidating presence made Eun Hyun kneel and made it hard for him to breathe. As Seo Hweo took his leave, he reminded Eun Hyun that they had lived for thousands of years, so they knew better than ordinary humans and could see things they couldn't. He intends to spare his life for now, but assures him that other cultivators will kill him like a bug even if he makes eye contact. After that, he left, leaving the other 3 behind in utter astonishment. The next day, when the last cultivator arrived to take Manager Kim away, Yoon Hyun paid his respects and asked how she could become a disciple of such a powerful cultivator despite lacking spiritual roots. The hermit claims to have the pill that opens up the spiritual channel, which can turn an ordinary person into a cultivator with effort. After hearing this, Yoon Hyun is pleased to find another way to become a cultivator. The hermit went to Manager Kim, looked at her face, and agreed that reaching the limit of martial arts to achieve the 5-element spiritual root is possible, but the process is long and can lead to adverse outcomes. After that, he threw both the protagonist Young Hoon and Yang Go since he didn't need them, while Manager Kim called him out. After the protagonist opened his eyes, he found himself strangling at the tree branch. As he looked around, he discovered he was in the southeast of Yangguo. Since he traveled around Yangguo in his past life with Young Hoon, and after wandering around for 100 years, he knows every part. Then he woke up Director Kim to explain the situation, and they walked to the nearest city. Although Young Hoon was initially confused, he eventually accepted everything. A few days later, they arrived in the nearest city, Hobiok, and bought a house after selling herbs. The protagonist taught the language and the severe mountain blade skill that he created by transforming his technique, severe mountain swordsmanship, to Young Hoon. 3 months after learning martial arts, Young Hoon achieved the 3 flowers at the summit. Yoon Hyun felt a bit annoyed as he barely achieved the status of a first-rate martial artist. After a while, Young Hoon is pleased as he can finally beat Yoon Hyun now. After seeing his reaction, the protagonist realized that the person before him was different from the one he served in his past life. He considers himself to be the age of Director Kim's grandfather, given his mental age and how many years he has lived. So, he doesn't intend to stay with him this time, and hand him the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, as he declared his intention of parting ways with him. Young Hoon is completely flustered upon hearing this, and asks why he was abandoned, and whether he has done something wrong. As he thinks about the reason, Yoon Hyun clearly remembers how devastated Young Hoon was during his first regression after meeting the cultivator, despite becoming the leader of the Wuxia Alliance. The second regression wasn't much different either, since Young Hoon created an advanced version of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, and went to fight cultivators. After being defeated by a stronger cultivator, Young Hoon gives up martial arts to become a cultivator himself. He is sure the result will be similar this time as well, and he doesn't intend to see Young Hoon in despair again, so he plans to leave first and intends to travel around the martial world to achieve a higher state. Young Hoon was reluctant to part ways since he couldn't live without the protagonist. The protagonist is confident that Young Hoon could stay alone since he has already learned this world language and is already at the peak martial arts level, so he doesn't have to worry about anything. Young Hoon is gloomy about parting ways with another man from his homeland. After hearing this, Yoon Hyun suggested meeting at their house on this day every 2 years. Thus, he persuaded Young Hoon and left the house. After a while, he arrived at the hall on the 8th floor, where the guard halted him and asked the reason for his arrival. After hearing Yoon Hyun's claim of arriving for a duel, the guard burst out in laughter, as a random guy like him can't enter. After hearing that Yoon Hyun promised to become stronger, he swiftly cut the guard's spear in half, then looked at him to know if he was still a nobody to him. After coming inside, he met the lady who led him to the place where the master was waiting. After arriving at the training ground, he noticed the hallmaster waiting for him while the disciples gathered to witness the match. The hallmaster was curious to see who the first rat martial arts artist was, but was surprised to see how young he was. Yoon Hyun greeted the leader of the Hall of 8 with respect. As the hallmaster praised his level of chi, Yoon Hyun noticed his opponent's chi, praised him as well, and clarified that he was there for his teaching. The master took out his weapon, started swinging it around, and intended to start. He swung the whip toward Yoon Hyun with the intention of inflicting harm. Yoon Hyun timely noticed the blade so swiftly deflected it, leaving the disciple in utter disbelief as he managed to do this. The leader was amused as well. But after observing his movements, he could tell Yoon Hyun had reached body sword unity and was a peak first-rate martial artist. Yoon Hyun praised the sect leader as he had fused the art into his moves, so he learned from his first move. The sect leader laughed excitedly upon realizing his opponent was at the same level as him at his age, and he considered him a true genius. Yoon Hyun smirked upon hearing the word genius, though it wasn't meant as a compliment. He understood their surprise at seeing someone so young attain a level that usually requires many years of training, but he is simply an ordinary martial artist blessed with such talent by heaven. However, he knew very well that he reached this level at such a young age due to regression. He considers regression as an opportunity and talent, which is why he chose to be known as a genius. After some consideration, he plans to use his sword chi to notify the sect leader and activate the first technique of the Severing Mountain swordsmanship, Transcending Peaks, to attack. When the sect leader dodged his strike, Yoon Hyun then used the second technique, Entering the Mountain, to move on to his third technique, Ascending Vein. After evading for a while, the sect leader decided to strike back, so he threw his whip at him and was annoyed to witness those monstrous sword techniques, which enabled him to find any opening. Yoon Hyun swiftly avoided his opponent's strikes and then employed the seventh technique, Severing Mountain swordsmanship, Deep Mountain, to make it difficult for the sect leader to dodge. As a result, the sect disciples were stunned to see their leader cornered so effortlessly. Furthermore, to their surprise, Yoon Hyun was getting faster with each attack, and along with the speed, his strength was also increasing gradually. While Yoon Hyun kept attacking so swiftly activated 11th technique Cliff Edge and got closer, making it hard for the sect leader to deflect. Yoon Hyun aims to finish this intense battle with his next move. He activates the 12th technique, Seven Lights Emerging Peak, which soars above the sect leader's head, slicing his whip into several pieces and astonishing everyone. The sect leader kneels, clutching his injured arm, groaning in pain, and conceding defeat. Yoon Hyun bowed before him to show his respect and was truly pleased to duel with the sect leader, then left. After coming out of the sect, Yoon Hyun is pleased to end this cleanly because the Hall of 8 Respects was known for its righteousness even in his past life, so they didn't harm him. He plans to move on to the unorthodox sect next, confident that this training will help him achieve the pinnacle realm. Afterward, he visited 4 additional sects in Seokyeong City. He was defeated by Yoon Ryubo and Hui Youngman, but managed to beat Gai Jubang and Yug Wolbo. Afterward, he went to Hoijang sect, fought their elder, and won. The leader was surprised to see his comrade defeated and impressed by Yoon Hyun's skill, as he is a top martial artist who has been dueling extensively. Yoon Hyun has learned a lot through these duels and has greatly improved. When the elders appeared behind the leader, he wanted Yoon Hyun to confront all 10 elders, hoping he was prepared. Yoon Hyun is startled to see them guess that might be a forgotten, unorthodox sect tradition. He considers himself victorious after defeating the elder, but he had never heard of a prolonged duel or fighting 10 people simultaneously. The leader chuckled slyly, thinking it might be his first time encountering such a challenge. Yoon Hyun was annoyed by how things were unfolding and planned to tarnish their sect's reputation by revealing their cowardice to others. The elder, however, was unfazed, confident Eun Hyun would be injured and possibly killed in the duel, even due to tetanus. He is confident that people will believe they looked after him well, but ultimately couldn't save him. As Yoon Hyun was encircled by elders prepared to attack him, the leader eagerly pointed out that the dead can't spread rumors. Confronted with such a deceitful tactic, Eunhyun becomes furious, realizing they are even crazier than he had imagined.